Imagine an emperor who builds a domain larger than Alexander the Great's, but who started out as its fiercest enemy. It sounds like something out of a movie, right? Well, that's the real-life story of Umar ibn Khattab, one of the most consequential figures in all of world history. Today, we're going to dive into his incredible journey. Think about this for a second. Today, almost 2 billion people, nearly a quarter of the world's population, follow Islam. And if you really want to understand how this faith grew from a tiny group of believers in the Arabian desert into a global religion, you have to know the story of Umar. He was a key architect of its most formative years. And get this, in just a decade, Umar built an empire that stretched from modern-day Libya all the way to Iran. We're talking about a territory that dwarfed even Alexander the Great's legendary conquests. This incredible feat is the central puzzle of his life. How on earth did he do it? So how did a man from the deserts of Arabia, a man who started out as a persecutor of a new faith, become its greatest champion and architect? That's the question we're here to answer. Let's find out together. Okay, to really understand Umar the man, we have to go back to where it all started. 7th century Mecca. This was a bustling, busy trading hub, and it was run by a powerful tribe called the Quraysh. But you know, the Quraysh weren't this single unified group. Not at all. They were really a collection of rival clans, and each one had its own domain of power. As you can see here, power in Mecca was pretty much divided between 3 main clans. You had the Banu Hashim, that's the Prophet Muhammad's clan. They held the religious authority. Then you had the Banu Umayyah, who controlled the city's wealth, and the Banu Makhzum, who were the military muscle. Now, Umar's clan wasn't one of these top 3, which makes his eventual rise to power all the more remarkable. Umar himself was like a product of 2 very different worlds. From his father's clan, the Banu Adi, he got the skills of a diplomat. He was eloquent, persuasive, and had a sharp mind for debate. But then, from his mother's clan, the absolutely fearsome Banu Makhzum, he inherited the spirit of a warrior. He was brave, decisive, and had this unyielding will. This combination of diplomacy and sheer strength would come to define his leadership. As a young man, Umar was just a force of nature. First of all, he stood at 6'6", which means he would have towered over pretty much everyone. He was a champion wrestler, a really sharp businessman, and a skilled ambassador for his people. In short, he was already a man of huge power and influence in Mecca. So, being a pillar of the Meccan establishment, Umar was deeply invested in the city's traditions and its power structure. So when a new faith emerged, a faith that challenged all those old ways, it was pretty much inevitable that he was going to see it as a threat. And this, right here, is where his story takes a truly dramatic turn. When the Prophet Muhammad began to preach the message of Islam, Umar became one of its most ferocious opponents. He saw this new faith as a direct threat to his entire way of life, and he was determined to stamp it out. He would publicly humiliate and even torture early Muslims, including his own slave girl, whom he would beat for her newfound faith. Then one day, his rage just reached a boiling point. He drew his sword and set off with one goal: to kill the Prophet. But on the way, someone told him that his own sister had secretly converted. He stormed into her house and found her reading the Quran. In a fit of absolute fury, he struck her, hard enough to draw blood. But the sight of his sister's blood, it just shocked him. It stopped him cold. Overcome with remorse, he asked to see what she was reading. And as he read the words of the Quran, something inside of him just shifted. In that single moment, the man who set out to kill the Prophet became his devoted follower. You can imagine, Umar's conversion was a massive turning point for the early Muslims. It was a sign that their faith wasn't just for the weak or the marginalized. It could win over the most powerful men in Mecca. His conversion gave them a shot of hope and a newfound confidence they desperately needed. Now, with Umar joining them, the total number of Muslims in Mecca was still tiny, only about 50 people in total. But his presence gave them the strength of 1,000 men. He was a symbol that their movement was growing, a sign that the tide was finally starting to turn in their favor. Think about the difference he made. Before Umar, the Muslims had to pray in secret, always fearing for their lives. The day after his conversion, he led them straight to the Kaaba, the most sacred site in Mecca, and they prayed openly, right there, for the very first time. With Umar on their side, they were no longer afraid. From that point on, Umar's dedication to Islam was unwavering. He fought in every major battle, and he even earned the title Al-Farooq, which means the one who distinguishes between right and wrong. He became a trusted advisor to the Prophet, and he was known for his incredible generosity. At one point, he donated half of his entire wealth to support the Muslim army. But Umar's greatest challenge was still yet to come, and it wouldn't be on a battlefield. It would come in the aftermath of a devastating loss, the death of the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet's death threw the entire Muslim community into a state of shock and utter confusion. In his own grief, Umar drew his sword and threatened to kill anyone who said the Prophet was dead. But as the community was teetering on the brink of collapse, his sense of duty just took over. He put his grief aside and, in a moment of clear, decisive leadership, he pledged his allegiance to Abu Bakr, the Prophet's closest companion. And with that single act, he unified the community behind one leader. As Abu Bakr's right-hand man, Umar played a crucial role in holding the new Muslim state together. But perhaps his most lasting contribution came from his incredible foresight. He was the one who proposed compiling the Quran into a single book. This act preserved the Holy Scripture for all future generations and is a real testament to his wisdom and vision. Just 2 years later, the Muslim community found itself facing that same question of succession all over again. As Abu Bakr lay on his deathbed, he had to make a choice that would shape the future of Islam for centuries to come. Now, when Abu Bakr announced that he wanted Umar to be his successor, some of his companions got worried. They thought Umar's harsh, uncompromising nature would make him a difficult leader. But Abu Bakr, who knew his friend's character so well, he reassured them. He said, "Umar is only harsh because I am lenient. When the weight of leadership is on his shoulders, he will soften." And you have to understand, this was a revolutionary act. In a world where power was almost always passed down through bloodlines, Abu Bakr chose his successor based on merit. He wasn't appointing a new king. He was entrusting this sacred mission to the person he truly believed was the most qualified to carry it out. And with Umar now at the helm, the Muslim community was about to embark on a completely new chapter in its history, a chapter of conquest and expansion that would literally change the face of the world forever. Umar's journey from a fierce persecutor of Islam to its greatest champion is just an incredible testament to the power of faith and the human capacity for change. His story brings up these profound questions about what leadership really is and what it takes to build a lasting legacy. It makes you wonder, what can we learn from his example today?